Today, there is one less general in the Russian army. In particular, a car was blown up near Moscow in Balashikha, and the driver who died could have been a lieutenant general of the Russian army. Thus, this could be the successful fourth elimination of a high-ranking Russian officer. And this is despite the fact that just yesterday there was news that Russian security services temporarily disabled part of the special video surveillance system used to protect the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. In particular, this happened after the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei in Tehran, which demonstrated new capabilities of artificial intelligence for surveillance. Meanwhile, news is appearing on Telegram channels that there was another explosion in Moscow, specifically in the southwest of the city where another car exploded. But we will also discuss the details of this explosion in this episode. Now let's get to the specifics. My name is Alexei Peichi. Subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. So it is reported that a car exploded today in Balashikha near Moscow. The footage has already spread across the internet, and now they are saying that the driver who died could have been a lieutenant general of the Russian occupation forces. Thus, this could be the successful fourth elimination of a high-ranking Russian officer. Russian sources immediately reported that the deceased was 62 years old, and it was first reported that the high-ranking military officer was the driver of this car. This was written by one of the anonymous pro-military Telegram channels. Officially, Russian security officials has not yet commented on the position of the deceased. However, mainly military personnel live in this area. And in the message from Russian Telegram channels, he is called an honest soldier and a patriot who was eliminated today. In particular, the explosion in the city of Balashikha in the Moscow region happened in the same area as just over a year ago. They blew up the car of the deputy chief of the general staff of the Russian Federation, Yaroslav Moskalik. This is a location where military personnel live. High-ranking Russian military officers live there, and apparently another one was eliminated today. It is reported that the distance between the explosion sites last year and today is about 300 to 350 meters. A BMW X3 exploded, caught fire, and crashed into a parked car. An eyewitness managed to get the driver out. But he didn't survive. The moment of the explosion was captured by cameras, and we can see it as well. Preliminary reports say that the explosive was placed behind the driver. He reportedly had a shrapnel wound to his back. The car had just left the parking lot when the explosion occurred. And here is one of the theories. The explosive was detonated remotely. And now some details have emerged about who it could have been. So, today near Moscow, the head of the main administration was eliminated. The Missile and Artillery Directorate of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, yes, and Damir Davidov. Well, in particular, the so-called Russian Z military bloggers are already writing about this. They are publishing more and more footage of this explosion. And it's obvious that, yes, another high-ranking Russian officer has been eliminated. In total, there are over 1,000 generals in the Russian army. And with this rank, there are both active and retired officers. These can be colonel generals, lieutenant generals, and so on. And so, Lieutenant General, the one who was eliminated today, is the second highest rank among senior officers, giving the right to command army corps or even military districts. And it is specifically lieutenant generals who keep getting killed in Moscow and the Moscow region. Let me remind you of a few more successful episodes. In December 2024, a scooter exploded in Moscow and killed Lieutenant General Igor Kuznetsov. Then in April 2025, in that same Balashikha, the deputy chief of the main directorate of the general staff, Yaroslav Moskalik, was blown up. He was also a lieutenant general. I want to stress again that only 350 meters separate Moskalik's explosion site from today's explosion. And then, in December 2025, an explosion occurred in Moscow. And at that time, the head of the Operations and Operational Training Department of the Russian Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Fanil Savchuk-Sarvarov, was killed. Of course, there was also an unsuccessful assassination attempt in February on the deputy chief of the GRU, Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev of the Russian Defense Ministry. But here, I want to point out one interesting and curious detail. The thing is, and I'll repeat it again, that there was actually already an explosion in almost the same place at the end of last year. A lieutenant general was eliminated. Another one, and apparently this didn't teach the Russians anything. On the other hand, just the other day, some information appeared, in particular from the Financial Times, about the fact that Russian special services temporarily disabled part of the special video surveillance system, which is used to protect the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. This happened after the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei in Tehran. It demonstrated new capabilities of artificial intelligence for surveillance. And according to sources of the Financial Times, the system was turned back on only after engineers checked it and tried to completely isolate it from the internet. According to the publication, Israeli intelligence gained access to a large amount of footage from traffic cameras in Tehran. This helped determine the exact place and time of Khamenei's meeting with his closest associates on February 28. And during the attack, several high-ranking officials of the Iranian security forces were killed. In Russia, there was concern that modern artificial intelligence technologies make it possible to analyze millions of hours of video from thousands of cameras, and quickly find specific people or patterns of behavior. And so, the director of the FSB, Alexander Bortnikov, last week warned regional security chiefs about the risks of such artificial intelligence systems. And here's what the Financial Times writes: new tools based on artificial intelligence. This really allows you to search in videos not only for faces or cars, but also for specific behaviors. For example, to find people who are passing bags to each other, changing their appearance, or moving along unusual routes. Artificial intelligence can now detect and understand when, for example, a car is driving strangely and maybe hiding something. Russia has previously had concerns about Vladimir Putin's security, particularly because of the activities of Ukrainian special services. And according to information from the Financial Times and the FSB, the Ukrainian side has already gained access to Russian road cameras and has also used mobile phone data during operations against Russian military personnel. At the same time, a source among Ukrainian hackers told the Financial Times that cameras in Moscow, particularly near the Kremlin, are still operational and are regularly being hacked. He did not specify whether Ukraine has the capability to conduct large-scale analysis of this data using artificial intelligence, but there are possibilities. It feels like, after all, yes, they do have it. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. And stay tuned, there will be many more interesting episodes on this YouTube channel today. In particular, we'll talk about what's happening in the Middle East. There, the American army really experienced a catastrophe. We'll discuss with you the details of Zelensky's closed-door meeting with the Americans. We'll also talk about Abramovich, which they wanted to keep hidden, but it all came to light. We'll discuss with you the European Union's ban on entry for all Russians who fought against Ukraine, the so-called Special Military Operation participants. And there will be a few more interesting topics, so make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll leave it there. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.